Deputy Owen Murphy, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak on the refugee crisis here in the Dáil chamber. But just to come back to the previous speaker's point around language, which is an important point. Last summer there was this debate about whether we'd say migrant or refugee. And it was in the media and it was on the internet, and people were getting very exercised about it. It's by no means the most important aspect of this crisis at all, but it is important. And I myself have a real problem with the word refugee, because I find that it's dehumanizing as a word. That when we come to say refugee now, it's like when we use numbers. It takes away the personhood or the humanity from the individual. So we say refugee, and that it makes these associations of other, or from another country, or another colour, or another ethnicity or creed, and we don't see those people as being ourselves, which is what they are. I mean, they are ourselves, but in a different geographic place, only they need to desperately get away from that place, and that's the only difference. And so I find that whether you're saying migrant or refugee, with the use of either word, you're creating a distance that I don't think should be there, because I think it actually interferes with our ability to properly face this crisis and deal with it. And it is a crisis, and it's perhaps the greatest crisis or threat to the European Union project since its foundation. It's bigger than the euro monetary crisis, and it's bigger than the risk or the potential threat that might come from Brexit. You know, it's challenging our notion of the European Union right to its core, and it's doing it every day. And it's potentially undermining principles and norms of that union that were built up over decades, and undermining them quite rapidly. I think that's worrying, but I don't think we should be looking at it as a threat necessarily. Of course it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that can be managed. But I think we just see it as an opportunity as well for the European Union. It's an opportunity to improve and diversify that union. It's an opportunity to right some of the wrongs that were perpetrated in Europe itself in our not too recent past. And it's an opportunity to use the union to be a force for good in world affairs. But we're never going to be properly able to deal with this crisis unless we have a shared understanding of our responsibility in this crisis, unless we have a kind of a common agreement that we are responsible and that we feel responsible. And, you know, implicit in that is a shared understanding and a shared vision of the European Union and what it means. And if we don't see this crisis as being common to all of us and a shared responsibility, then we're not going to find the right tools to try and solve it and deal with it. You know, people are fleeing something horrific. Deprivation, poverty, violence, war-torn areas, and they're coming to the shores of the European Union if they can make it here alive, and they're seeking something better. They're seeking quite simply a future. Now we have to ask ourselves if we in Ireland see ourselves as having a responsibility in that situation. You know, and it's a responsibility, of course, that the well have to the unwell. It's a responsibility that the strong have to the weak. But is there something more tangible than that in terms of responsibility? The responsibility that we have to our neighbours and our partners in the European Union, because this is happening to them. Maybe it's something even more tangible than that. Maybe it's a responsibility we share because of the actions of European countries and European Union member states in the Middle East. And I don't mean in the most recent decades. I mean going all the way back to Sykes-Picot. You know, is there something there because we are partners that we share responsibility for their actions, or do we have a responsibility because of our own inaction when they took action? Perhaps we do, perhaps we don't. Maybe there's a responsibility that we have here in Ireland for something greater than that even, and this great threat that Daesh poses to Europe and to the Western world and to civilized people and to freedom. Those people who are fleeing that torture and that torment, the responsibility that we have to reach out and say, come to us and we'll protect you, because there's safety here and there's freedom here, and we believe in your rights as an individual and as a person. I think we have that responsibility. We have that responsibility 1,000 times over, and for so many reasons. And the question then falls to us then, are we meeting that responsibility as a country? And I'm incredibly proud when I see the work that our Navy is doing in the Mediterranean and the lives that they are saving every day. And when you look at the military capabilities of other countries in the European Union, ours are minuscule compared to what other countries have. And yet, with our scarce resources, we are deciding to devote them in this way. And that makes me proud, and it's something really great that we're doing. And it does say that we believe we have a responsibility to these people, to these lives. But that responsibility doesn't stop there in terms of taking people out of the water and bringing them to safe land. We have a responsibility to take in people as well. And 4,000 people is good, but it's not great. I believe that we can and we should take in more. I believe 10,000 should be our starting figure at least, because we can do that. Now, of course, that poses challenges to us as a country. It poses challenges to the direct provision system, which is a disgrace and which is indefensible and inhumane. But maybe, again, that challenge can be seen as an opportunity to free those people who are trapped in direct provision, and we've all had cases of people who've been stuck for years in that system. An opportunity to rethink how we actually treat people who are coming to this country, looking for our help, looking for a better life. And this crisis is only going to get worse. That's something we need to recognise, particularly now as we enter the better months in the year from a point of view of the weather and conditions. And we have to ask ourselves, as Ireland and as the European Union, are we ready for it? We're not. Despite the recent agreement, we're still not ready for this challenge. And that stems from the fact that we as Europeans, even though there have been some great acts of goodwill and charity from individuals in their own countries, we as European countries don't yet seem to share or fully believe that we have this full responsibility to the people who are coming and fleeing to our shores. And I know there are plenty of arguments against taking in more refugees for Ireland and for other countries in the European Union. And they stand up okay as arguments if you don't want to take in more refugees. But that's the key question. Do we want to take in more refugees? Do we believe we have a role and a responsibility here? Are we going to use the benefits of winning the country of birth lottery to help other people or just to help ourselves? Because we can. We can look after the most desperate people on this earth at this moment in time, and we can look after ourselves. We can do both if we choose to. It's 100 years since the Rising. I'm not quite sure what that means. We like to focus on numbers, but it's 100 years, and we have our country. And it's a good country. It has its problems, but when you compare it to the countries that people are fleeing from, we are much better off. We are safe, we are secure, we have prosperity, and we have freedom. But what's our vision for what we want to do with that freedom? Surely we have a vision that extends beyond, how we want to pay for water. Surely we have a bolder vision for this country. Surely our horizons are bolder and brighter than that. And we really need to figure out what that vision is, because we are at a very important point in Irish history, I think. And I fear that the society, our country, our politics is breaking down in a way. But maybe in this one area, at least, we can find a vision. We can find a way that in helping others, we can help fix ourselves. Because I do think we need to do that work. But it comes back to the responsibility, if we believe we have one, and I believe that we do, and Irish people do. But making sure that the European Union sees that shared responsibility. And then using our will from this chamber to try and create the will amongst European partners to properly address the crisis that is unfolding on European shores at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Murphy.